Welcome to another news. I'm Jeff Brady. You can bet there will be distractions, catastrophes, and false flags leading up to the U.S. 2024 presidential election. There's a lot at stake. With unchecked rampant election fraud, the United States may further descend into an irreversibly worse situation. There are people in positions of power in this country that are willing to do whatever it takes to rig the 2024 election against the voters' choice. Is that hard to believe? I urge you to read Mollie Hemingway's book titled Rigged: How the Media, Big Tech, and Democrats Seized Our Elections. She cites and reveals evidence showing how financial support from big tech, namely Mark Zuckerburg and other sources, that helped to create more votes for the Democratic Party. The specific area of concern is mail-in ballots, but as many know, digital voting machines and manipulation of voter roll databases are also key vectors of exploitation. However, if you've noticed, the left and most of the right aren't calling the proper attention to election reform, the type of election reform that would create full transparency, a reform that would present irrefutable evidence in court, the type of reform that allows an election system to directly reflect the voice and the will of the voter. That technology actually exists, and some of it's being used to restore accurate voter database rolls across counties in many states right now. Our guest, Jay Valentine, has been leading software developers for years to bring systems of transparency to database manipulation, including insurance and Medicaid fraud, and also eBay auction fraud. Jay Valentine is currently working with legislators in 27 states to demonstrate consistently accurate and quickly accessible voter databases. Jay, welcome to Another News.
Well, thanks. It's nice to be here.
I want to ask you, based on the 2020 election and the Arizona governor's election, many suspect plans are quietly being drawn to steal the 2024 election. From what we know about foreign election interference exposed by the O'Keefe Media Group and the power structure's intent on forcing their agenda onto the United States, it's an obligation, I believe, of every person living in this country to educate themselves on the details of the election process and how it's currently being subverted. Jay, before we dive into the U.S. election fraud details, would you please tell listeners about your background and how you came to lead software developers into creating key problem-solving apps for businesses?
Sure, Jeff. We are high-tech guys in Austin, Texas. And we have deep roots dating back decades dealing with large, complex data problems, particularly around the concept of identity fraud. Identity fraud, whether it's in the political space or it's in the insurance space or the banking space, is people using all kinds of tactics to hide deeply in the data of names and addresses, locations, etc. We are the guys who built the eBay fraud detection engine. So when eBay was getting killed with auction fraud, nobody could solve their problem. They had the Secret Service, the FBI, they had all the neural net companies in there. And we built a technology called similarity search that literally made that a problem of the past. Our technology was later used as the foundation of the TSA no-fly list. So when you look at people trying to change their Arabic names to hide, to get on airplanes and blow them up, there was no technology. The government, the Secret Service, again, the FBI, they had no technology to stop that. So they came to us and we did. We built the base technology for a lot of the big insurance companies, Geico, USAA, State Farm, to stop insurance fraud from organized fraud rings. And about 2020, we got a call from Sheriff Clark in Milwaukee. And he said, hey, look, we think there were anomalies in the voter rolls in Wisconsin. Could you look at them? Oh, we've never done that, but we said, sure, we'll be happy to do it. And we did. And now, as of last week, we were running the data for 21 states. As of this morning, it's 27 states. And there are anomalies in those data rolls that would make your hair turn gray.
There are many ways to steal election. In Mollie Hemingway's book, Rigged, she traced back the way mail-in ballots were set up to be a major tool to give more votes to Democrats. France banned mail-in voting in 1975 because of concerns over voter fraud. And the 2005 Commission on Federal Election Reform, chaired by President Jimmy Carter, declared that absentee ballots remained the largest source of potential voter fraud, not voting machines. Voting machines can easily be used as an inconvenient obstacle by breaking down or convenient errors that give more votes to a candidate. But you're working on cleaning up voter roll databases and finding anomalies. Would you please tell listeners about this process and how you became involved?
Well, when we started, we didn't really know what to do. Nobody had ever done this kind of work before. Before the 2020 election, Jeff, there were very few people in America who looked at voter rolls. After the 2020 election, out of nowhere, there are now groups in every state, I might add almost every county in the United States, doing deep dive on voter rolls. The problem is they don't have any tools. They all use SQL technology called SQL. They all use relational database, Microsoft Excel. I mean, those are, obsolete technologies. So they came to us, Sheriff Clark to begin with, but then people from other states, and said, will you run the voter rolls? We did, and we didn't really know what we were looking for. And we had primitive tools at the beginning ourselves. But then over time, we started learning that there were other government databases that we can cross-search. So what we're doing now, and as of today, we're doing it in 27 states, is we ingest the property tax roll for a county, which tells us the address, the number of square feet, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms. It goes on and on, the year it was built. We have all kinds of data. Then what we do is we take the voter registration records, which tell us who's registered at that address. And guess what, Jeff? We run what's called a cross-compare. Now, why haven't people done this before? Well, because to do this with conventional technology, you would not be able to do it. It would take you weeks and months, and by the time you got there, you'd forget what you were looking for. We do it with one click from your phone because fractal technology, which is the technology that we use, which is truly advanced, the state of the art, runs 1,000,000 times faster, 1,000 times to 1,000,000 times faster than current technology. So what happens with us is we run that one click. Now, we're not the ones who do it. The voter team in that county might do it. So in your area, we might show that you have 150 people registered to vote at 7-Elevens. You have 618 people registered to vote at a Target or a Walmart. You have 1,500 students registered to vote at a college dormitory. But guess what? 160 of those 600 are registered in the same room. That's the kind of stuff we find. And because we're able to do it so fast, and because we're able to do it so powerfully, it makes it undeniable. Because remember, we're not using our data, Jeff. We're taking the official government property records from a county, the most prestigious, pristine records they have, because it's what they use to allocate taxes. And we're using those records to show that the voter records are abhorrent. Now, we've run some tests in Virginia, and I can tell you right now, Virginia is very much opposed to us doing this. We actually had a chat with the director of elections in Virginia, and she said, well, we don't want to do that because it's against the law in Virginia to use property rolls to do that. Well, we checked with Virginia people, and they said that's nonsense. What she doesn't want to do is she doesn't want to have the Fractal team embarrass her by showing how many tens of thousands of people in Virginia are living right now at an address that the Virginia property tax rolls will show are addresses that are ineligible, therefore illegal. And we're going to do it in Virginia. We're working with Virginia teams. We're going to do it, but we're going to do it not with any collaboration from the Virginia state government.
You are going into these counties, you're cross-checking voter database rolls with property tax lists, and you're able to see all these errors, including multiple names registered to vote for one address. What happens when somebody like an election supervisor finds 50 names registered to a Walmart parking lot? Do those names immediately get disqualified?
Absolutely not. So one of the things you need to know is that voter roll anomalies are really sticky. So we have group after group and county after county and state after state who have gone in, met with the registrar of voters, or in some cases, Secretary of State, and said, look, this is undeniable. We have 615 people, and they are registered to vote at a laundromat, which has no bedrooms and no bathrooms. And the registrar shrugs their shoulders and say, well, I'm not allowed to take them off unless they have failed to vote in 2 consecutive presidential elections. Now, that isn't really what the law says, but that's what they say it says. So our strategy is very different. Now, remember, we're not political activists, so we're not the ones doing this. We're working with people who are in each county trying to do something to get the election of 2024 somewhere close to honest. So the question is, Jeff, what are they doing? So here's what they're doing. Working with us, they have built out something called the undeliverable ballot database. So we know in this apartment building, there are 100 people who are registered to vote. But we also know that they did not put their APT or unit number on their voter registration. So when a ballot is mailed to them, they're never going to get it. It's going to accumulate on the floor of the mailroom. Then what happens? That will either be picked up by leftists or it'll be picked up by the Postal Service or both. And we have evidence this is happening all across the country. That will be picked up by those people. It will be given to the leftists and it will be voted. And they will vote for those people against Republicans. So what people are using our system for is the undeliverable ballot database. We can tell you today, a year in advance, where every ballot is going to go in every major county in America in 2024. And that ballot is not going to find a person. It's going to be a loose ballot. And what they're doing is they are either going out and filing a lawsuit, or they're putting together teams of people who will be there when those ballots arrive. They're going to collect them and give them to the sheriff's office. There's all kinds of things going on. It's county by county. But for the first time ever, we know not a year after the election to litigate, not a year after the election to complain, but a year before the election, we know where all this fraud's going to happen. And we can take action, take steps to stop it before people actually get a ballot.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, that mail-in ballot fraud is the largest source of potential fraud, and that's from the 2005 Commission on Federal Election Reform, chaired by President Jimmy Carter. That's what he declared. Are you concerned also that because now this information is getting out, that there will be methods in place here to attempt to stop this strategy of flooding a county or a state, with mail-in ballots? Are you concerned that those people who are doing this, once they know you're involved or people who are onto their system are involved to stop it, are they going to use another strategy or double down?
Well, we need to define terms. So the first term we need to define is mail-in ballot fraud. Now, mail-in ballot fraud comes in 2 variants. One is the variant that you described. It's very obvious. So people spoof people on voter rolls, or they put people at addresses that are ineligible addresses like a bank or a convenience store or strip mall, and they'll just register people there with made-up names, collecting those ballots and then later voting them. And we know that happens. We know that's where they're going to go. But that's not the only type of ballot fraud, Jeff. There's a more sinister type of ballot fraud. And that ballot fraud is where the elected officials at the county or state level are going to change the voter rolls during the early part of early voting to favor one candidate. What does that look like? Well, we were asked to do the data analysis after the Kari Lake campaign in Arizona. So they gave us 2 copies of the voter roll in Arizona. One copy was dated October 7th, and one copy was dated November 4th, and the election was November 8th. What did we find? Well, we compared the two. Now, with conventional technology, it's almost impossible to do that, and when you do it, it takes forever. But with fractal technology, we did it with one click. And what did we find, Jeff? We found that the week that mail-in ballots were going to be sent out, the voter commission changed the zip codes of 33,000 people in one county alone in Arizona. So 33,000 people, Jeff, didn't get a ballot. Now, they got their mail because the post office didn't change them, but they didn't get a ballot. Where'd those ballots go? Well, they didn't go to Kari Lake. Then the other thing they did is they added 22,000 new voters. Now, this is 30 days before the election when it's illegal to do so. Kari Lake didn't know they added 22,000 new voters, but they did. And those people voted. Most of them voted. And Kari Lake lost the state by 17,000 votes. But that county alone had literally 100,000 changes made to their voter roll by their government election commission a few weeks before the election. Virtually all of those changes were illegal. So we don't just check for where a ballot's going to get delivered. We also monitor the voter rolls because we pick up where voter commissions are screwing with voter rolls so that they can favor one candidate. And we know in 2024, we can already see them setting up for it. They're going to be doing this in county after county. So in Harris County, Texas, which is Houston, the largest county in the state, we actually will be taking a copy of the voter roll every day starting 60 days before the election. And every day when they start to flood the zone with these new fake voters, or they start changing people's addresses without people knowing it so they're not going to get their mail-in ballots, we're going to pick that up and be able to solve that problem weeks before the votes are cast.
Okay, that's a big step. That's actually really important. You mentioned Virginia, that they didn't want to give you the property tax record list. What is the nature of the availability of these voter rolls to a regular citizen? Is this public?
Yeah, most of them are public. They're public in Virginia. I mean, we don't need the Virginia Election Commission to help us out. We're going to do Virginia. We're doing it right now. We're running Virginia anyway. So we're getting voter rolls from the largest counties in Virginia. We're actually going to have them for the whole state. That's public information. I think in Virginia there's some steps, but eventually it's public. Then what we do is we get the property tax rolls. Now, we don't have to fight anybody for those. Those are publicly available. Every real estate agent in the state uses tax rolls to do comps, and banks use them for comps, et cetera. And we're going to compare the two. And we already know what we're going to find. And Virginia, you would think, is a really clean state. Some article that was written that Virginia took out 19,000 dead people. Well, I assure you, we're going to show you tens of thousands of people in Virginia registered in vacant lots, registered in Walmarts and Targets and convenience stores. It's embarrassing. But some states are very cooperative. Virginia is not cooperative at all.
I think I read that it was maybe in Alabama that you had some voters that were maybe 2,000 years old. Or
They predate our Lord. Yeah, Alabama's great. So Alabama voter rolls are really, really interesting. They're a model for a bunch of what we call red states. So red states tend to be states that vote Republican. Now remember, we're not activists, we're data guys. So I'm just giving you the thing on data. So in Alabama, we were running the voter rolls, and we did a demonstration for their attorney general. It's not the same person who's the attorney general today, it's the previous guy. During the demonstration, we showed him hundreds of people who are over 2,500 years old. When we do that, this happens in every state. We'll find people in Virginia who are 180 and all that. They're all over the place. Anyway, when we do that, the Attorney General comes back and says, well, they didn't vote. Well, that's true. They didn't vote in a Trump election. And so he really thought, wow, they've proven that we have dirty rolls, but they haven't proven that we have rolls that are doing illegal things. Well, that isn't really true, because here's what we found in Republican-ish states. Virginia and Alabama was the best example of this. In states like Alabama, in a presidential election, it's like 65 or 70% of the people vote for the Republican. In California, 60 or 70% of the people vote for Democrats. Everybody knows that. And what we found in Alabama is, you're right, those people didn't vote in presidential elections, but they vote in county elections, and they vote in city council elections, and they vote on school boards. So what happens is the leftists know that they cannot control the outcome of presidential elections in certain red states, certain Republican states. They have no control for the high end of the ballot. But they know that they can bring out those armies of phantoms. In Alabama, they bringing out people from Job Corps centers and Goodwill stores. All these places don't have bedrooms, they don't have bathrooms, you can't live there. But thousands of those people were voting in state rep elections and mayoral elections. So that's how they're doing it. I mean, these people who do this voter fraud using voter rolls, they're not just doing it in presidential elections, Jeff. They're doing it up and down the ballot. And in Republican states, they're doing it down the ballot more than up the ballot.
Yes, it's really important to note that this isn't about Democrats cheating. Well, it is, but there is significant inaction by Republican politicians in wanting better voter database systems. Would you talk a little more about what you've noticed in that regard?
Our first discovery is that it is not that Democrats cheat and Republicans don't. We have example after example of Republicans who are cheating in heavily Republican states. So this is bipartisan. Everybody cheats. It's a matter of, if you're in power, you cheat. If you're not in power, perhaps less so. So it's not a Democrat-Republican thing. The second thing is that the Democrats, and I don't pick on them in particular, but they are not as active as the Republicans in the field are at the county level with cleaning voter rolls. They are much less so. But people come to us and they go, well, why don't you go to the Republican National Committee? Why don't you go to Republican congressmen and senators? Why don't you show them this output? Well, we did. We went to the Republican National Committee. We showed them the stuff. And during the demonstration, they said, wow, this is really amazing. You should give us your data. And we're not going to give you our data. We're going to make this available to citizens so the citizens can do this in every single state. 3 days later, the Republican National Committee told the Trump campaign, oh, you don't want to work with those guys. Their stuff doesn't work. They're not finding anything. They're conning you and all that. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. The Republican National Committee will do anything they can to stop people in the field from finding out how bad the technology of the Republican National Committee is. They have no ability to do anything. We even did a test in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the Republican National Committee provides canvassing lists. So you get a list, you go door to door, you knock on the door for your candidate. Their lists were over 50% incorrect. So 50% of the time, the Republican National Committee said, so-and-so lives at this address. He didn't, or he was dead, or he had moved. 6 months later, these same groups came to the Fractal team, and our team for Wisconsin built them the list. We didn't charge them. We just built it and gave it to them. It's not really our business. We're not in that business, but one of our team members did. Those lists, they ran across 1,000 homes. 999 of 1,000 were exactly what the Fractal team said they would be. That is why the RNC, the Republican National Committee, and Republican National Committee people, and in many cases, the state party chair people, are doing everything they can to stop us from showing the power that technology can bring to win 2024. So when people say the leftists must be doing everything they can to stop you guys, no, the leftists aren't doing anything. It's the Republicans.
Yeah, definitely. I see this as a major national security issue, and creating chaos or a messy environment is a known strategy or tactic to make fraudulent activity really easy to do. Would you go into a little more detail, Jay, about what fractal is? Because I remember hearing you in another interview saying that you can give this technology to an election supervisor or an attorney general or a secretary of state, and they could just look on their phone and get updated database results that have been cross-checked and updated to the minute of anomalies and things like that. Could you go into more detail?
Sure. Fractal technology is a new technology stack. So when you're using technology today, you are using a stack that's been around since 1970s called relational. It's going to be a relational database. It's called data lake. It's called Hadoop. All of these things are conventional technology, and they come in a lot of forms, and they are very limited on their ability to handle trillions and trillions of records and super fast artificial intelligence systems. So we built a system called Fractal. Now, we've been working on it for over 30 years, so it's not like we just came up with it this morning. And Fractal is a stack. So what Fractal does, it gives you the ability for a specific application to build everything where you're not using general purpose software. You're using very specific software for very, very specific things. And because of that, if you're a technology person, what we have done is we have virtually eliminated I/O. That means input, output. What that means is that in a fractal system, the computer's not looking on a bunch of different places on every instruction to fill its data queue. That stuff is all predetermined, and it's running really, really fast. Think a million times faster. So we have clients who have a billing system, for instance, and it might take them 90 hours a month, clock hours, on a massive 3090 computer running Oracle clusters. It might take them 92 hours to run that system. We take the same system, in 60 to 90 days, we rewrite it in Fractal. It runs in less than 2 minutes on hardware that's smaller than an iPhone. So it's massively transformational technology. So anyway, what we do now is we typically do big artificial intelligence systems for large electric utilities so they can manage the power grid. They can tell when equipment's going to blow up before it does. They can tell, water companies can tell where there are leaks in their system. Those are the kind of things that we do in our commercial space. But in the election space, right now, I mean, we're working with the Attorney General of 2 states. We're working with the Secretary of State and the legislature, not just a couple of legislators, but the actual legislature of several states, where they're bringing in Fractal. And they're not changing anything they already have. They're just running Fractal, a fractal voter system, side by side with their current system. What happens? Well, now what happens is every transaction, like a new voter, comes in, it goes through both systems. And the conventional system they have might, update their voter records and do whatever it does. Well, the fractal system checks against the property rolls, the FEC rolls, the Medicaid rolls, the WIC rolls, all the other rolls for the state, and says, well, wait a minute, before you register this person, you may want to know that address is at Walmart. Before you register this person, you may want to know he's already registered in 3 other counties. Those are the kind of things. So it only takes, a few weeks to set up a system like that. And like I told you before, we're now making videos of this. And we're going to be publishing the videos all over the media so people can actually see that this kind of technology is available. There's no reason ever again to have people registered at Walmarts who are on your voter rolls. No reason.
I think this is going to be a significant watershed moment here for election integrity once those videos get out and more people start to have you on their shows, and it's definitely going to have a nice domino effect. because of the resistance that you're also experiencing here. I mean, that's another indicator. You were told to take down an article that was published on the Gateway Pundit about the incompetence of the RNC database systems. Could you tell listeners more about that?
Well, we don't go after political organizations because we're not political. We work with Republicans, we work with Democrats. We don't even know people's party affiliations. But we were actually called into a meeting with the Republican National Committee to show our technology. We said, sure, we don't care. So we get into this phone call, and they have all these Republican RNC data types there, and a couple of their real high-ranking people were on there. And so the people who arranged the call said, would you show your system to these people? I said, sure. I would do this every day for other people. Happy to do it for them. So we showed them the system. And even on the call, they several times were like, wow, this is really pretty cool. And it is. I mean, we're way ahead of where those guys are. Now, remember, we offered this to the RNC, Republican National Committee. We offered this to the Democratic National Committee. We offered this to the Trump campaign. We offered this to the Robert F. Kennedy campaign at no charge. Now, that was a long time ago. And said, look, if you folks want to use this technology to help honest and fair elections, we're not going to help you get elected, but if you want to use it for honest and fair elections, we'll be happy to work with you. And after we showed this to the Republican National Committee people, we were expecting that, wow, look, we're showing you technology that's literally 100 years ahead of the data lake junk you people have that can't do anything. And we're certainly make it available to you. We got a call like 48 hours later from a guy in the Trump campaign, and he said, well, the Republican National Committee told the Trump campaign that your stuff wasn't vetted. It's not any good, and it doesn't work. And we just laughed. I mean, these people are really fools. And we just take, a step back and laugh. And the reason is not that they're sinister. It's that they're stupid. They don't want to use advanced technology because they don't know how to employ it. I mean, these are people who they need a job. They need to get their $8,000-$9,000 a month checks. They don't know technology beyond SQL or relational database or data lakes and that junk. And they don't care about winning elections. They don't even care about cleaning voter rolls. These guys just want to have a job. We get it. And so we're not upset about it, but we just thought it was kind of fun.
If you could go into a little more detail about what their current database, for example, the RNC database systems, what are the major flaws for their systems, the major vulnerabilities that listeners need to know about, and how they're being exploited?
We don't get into flaws and vulnerabilities because that would be inappropriate. We get into technology stacks. I mean, we're not picking on the Republican National Committee, and I don't want to go there. They're nice people, and they're just very limited intellectually and clearly very limited technologically, and there's no reason for us to pick on them. What we're doing is we're picking on a technology stack, Jeff. So your question is better asked, okay, there's a current technology stack out there, and everybody uses it. Major corporations use it. The RNC uses it. The Democrat National Committee uses it. The Kennedy campaign is using it. So what's wrong with that technology stack? Well, the problem, Jeff, is slow. It's very, very slow. So if the Republicans, if the Kennedy campaign, if the Democratic National Committee, if the FBI, if the people running voter rolls in Texas or in Alabama or in California, if they wanted to look at current voter rolls and compare them with current property tax rolls, they can't do it. Why not? Because every county in America has different column headings for their property tax rolls. So if you look at the property tax rolls in Virginia, for the county that you live in, it calls a single-family house something. It may call it a 57123, like a number, or it may give it a code. Whatever your adjacent county is calls a single-family home something else. Well, there are 3,200 counties. So for one column, and a property tax record can have from 40 to 160 columns. For one column, you have 3,200 different things you can call it. Well, that's impossible for current technology. Now, for Fractal, we're built for that. We're built for bringing in 3,200 databases in 3,200 formats, and some of them are in DBase. Some of them are, you could almost see them written with a crayon. They're so old. But we ingest that stuff, and we know how to do that. Our technology is built for that. But the technology these people have is not. We bring in the FEC rolls. So we brought in the Federal Election Commission rolls dating back to 2019 until current. That's 250 million records. We brought in 3 databases that are national 911, 411, 911 databases, right? We brought 3 or 4 of those in. Those are each 500 million records. We brought in databases from all these various counties of their property taxes. So we're not just comparing A to B. We're comparing A to the entire alphabet. And when we do it, we're finding all kinds of things. Now, the things we find are not necessarily sinister. So in one state, what we're doing is we're comparing their voter rolls and their property tax rolls with their Medicaid rolls. Now, they're not looking for voter fraud. They're not. That's not why they brought us in. They're looking for Medicaid fraud because they want to see that a guy is registered at Walmart is getting Medicaid checks because he claims to be a doctor. Well, they can't do that with their current technology. We do it with one click. Now, I can't demonstrate that publicly because those rolls are protected, but we're doing that for the Attorney General of one state for election rolls, and for FEC rolls, we're finding these people called contribution mules. They made like 5,000 donations of 1 penny, 5,000 donations of 1 penny in a 90-day period. And then after that, they made 10,000 donations, each of $50. And it's the same person. That person would have to be writing checks all day to do that. Well, we find that. And we have attorney generals all around the country saying, well, show us that. Well, we're doing that. So when you think about cross-database search, Jeff, it's not just for phantom voters. That's one quick thing. It's the ability for a state government finally to get control of Medicaid fraud. And so that's a big part of our business right now.
That's really encouraging to know about. And so there are many benefits to this technology, as you're pointing out. And that's probably the main part of your business, Medicaid fraud and other insurance fraud.
The main thing we do is we take artificial intelligence systems. Now, artificial intelligence systems, by our standards, are really, really slow. So we take an artificial intelligence system that may run at a certain speed today, and literally we will make it run 1,000 to 1,000,000 times faster. Well, that becomes really important if you're an electric utility and you want to look at every transformer in your power grid. And why is that? Because in your power grid, you have transformers on phone poles. Everybody sees them. They're those great things kind of hanging out on top of phone poles. Well, if you have 3 or 4 electric vehicles in your neighborhood, they can cause that transformer to blow up. The electric utility has no visibility to that. So we build artificial intelligence systems for electric utilities so they can see that transformer is being overloaded, and they can change around the grid in that neighborhood before it blows up. A transformer is $500,000. It's anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000. I mean, they're big money, and the states don't have hundreds of them laying around. And so if we can use artificial intelligence running at our speed, which is literally 1,000,000 times faster, that we give you the ability to solve these problems before they become issues. And that's what Fractal does in the commercial space.
I got it. Wow. It's ingenious. Getting back to the voting for a minute, Mollie Hemingway, author of the book Rigged, found that counties receiving money from Zuckerberg, well, on average, these counties moved 2.3 percentage points to Democratic. Will cleaner voter canvassing databases help slow down or stop the influence of big tech money pouring into swing states such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and North Carolina?
Well, I don't know what's going to stop that because that's a political question and we don't really get involved in that. Where technology will have an impact on that is that these organizations are not out there registering voters. these organizations are registering leftist voters. Now, when they go through the process, and we have some data to prove this, in Harris County, Texas, they will be registering thousands of people, and they have to tie everybody to a real address. So even if you are some homeless drug addict on the street, you see them on TikTok, right? They're zombies. They're just standing on the street with their head bent over. Well, that person is a leftist voter, I assure you. Every single one of those people probably votes 3 or 4 times. Now, they don't know that because they're zombies, and they just don't know that because somebody votes for them. But what cleaning the voter rolls does is it limits the number of addresses that you have to work with. Well, what does that mean? So every time you register a zombie, a person who either doesn't exist or they're so drug-induced they're never going to vote, but you don't care because you're going to vote for them, you have to tie it to an address. Well, you run out of addresses. You can't tie them to single-family homes that much because people will find that in the door-to-door canvassing. So you put them in apartment buildings, but you can't put them in apartment buildings at scale because if you don't have their apartment number there, then their ballot is going to collect on the floor. And with Fractal, we're going to find those ballots. So they don't want that to happen. So what they do is they register them at addresses like the Walmarts and the strip malls and all that. Because it's really easy to do that. A strip mall might have 30, 40 addresses in it. Now, not one of them has a bedroom, but that's fine. It's a really great way to register scammy voters. But now what's happening is we're freezing those addresses. So ours is an address-driven system. Well, we don't really look at the people. We look at the addresses, and we show you that in Harris County, Texas, this month, they registered 80,000 new voters, and 62,512 were at addresses that the property tax rolls demonstrate are clearly illegitimate. And what happens? Bam! We send one click to the voter integrity team, and they have affidavits already written for 62,000 people, and they can challenge those weeks before the election. That's the power of what we're doing.
I think it's going to be really amazing. Now, how is some of this data that is exposing, maybe some of it's sinister, maybe some of it isn't, some of it's negligent, how will this hold up in court? It's not easy, is what I read, to litigate election fraud. It's very difficult. Will this help to litigate election fraud?
Well, we have a bunch of opinions on that, and we have them not because we have anything to do with the court, because we don't. We're data guys. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't sue anybody. We don't do any of that. But the people who use our data do, and so we have a lot of insight into that. The first insight we have is that it is almost impossible to get voters off voter rolls through the legal system. Now, you're going to get them off eventually, but you're not going to get them off in time to make a difference for 2024. So that's a false premise. Number two, there are all kinds of other things that you can litigate about where people are being massively successful. So one of the first questions I get this question from voter integrity groups all around the country now. Voter integrity groups in America come in like 3 flavors. The first flavor are the legacy groups. Now, these are groups who get on Zoom calls and they go to seminars, and every Monday night they have a Zoom call with like 1,000 people on it, and they use old technology and their coffee clutches, and they don't do anything but kind of hang out together. And they're everywhere. We don't work with those guys. The second group of voter integrity teams are voter integrity teams who are working within the state, and they're trying to do the type of work we're talking about, and they're doing it very, very, very painfully, one record at a time, because they don't want to use technology, because they're not technically savvy. And then there's a third group who we call the FRAC Pack. That's our people, and they're in 27 states, probably be in 50 states by the next couple months, and they're using fractal technology to really do this. Now, what are they doing in terms of court cases? Well, the first question we get, and we always get this from a legacy guy, is, well, show us where somebody has used fractal technology and done anything with it in court. Well, guess what, boys and girls? In the state of Wisconsin, the FRAC Pack team has litigated in a blue state, and they are 12-0. They have won 12 consecutive major lawsuits. The last one took 225,000 fake voters off the voter roll. But let's not stop there. The Frack Pack team in the great state of Wisconsin has raised all kinds of issues against Megan Wolf. Megan Wolf is the chairperson of the Wisconsin Election Commission. She is the equivalent of the Secretary of State. Guess what? The state Senate just kicked her out. And a lot of the reason they kicked her out was the testimony of the people who use our system. Much of the data they use is our system. So we have state after state after state where people are using fractal technology. They're finding tremendous visibility into these voter rolls. And it's so obvious because they're not using some dusty report. They're not talking with some nonsensical statistical thing that nobody can understand. They're standing in front of elected officials or judges with a tablet, and they're saying, Your Honor, look at this. There's 1,000 people registered at a target. This can't go on. And they're moving the needle. So we're not into the court stuff, and we don't do litigation. We don't do any of that kind of stuff. But the people who use our system do, and they are massively successful. While at the same time, these other voter integrity teams are doing nothing. They're raising money, they're sitting on Zoom calls, and they're telling people fractal doesn't work, but they're going nowhere. And it's just terrible to watch that terrible waste of human effort. It makes us very sad.
That is sad, Jay, especially if they're saying that fractal doesn't work. And, just moving into another realm, I was interested in what your thoughts are about designing systems to fraud-proof mail-in ballot fraud or digital voting machines with their proprietary code and paperless receipts and the ability to be remotely hacked.
We don't get into voting machine stuff. And the reason we don't is because people don't understand that voting machines are the lowest form of computer technology on the planet. A voting machine has less advanced technology than a modern cash register. There's nothing in there. Voting machines are garbage technology. Anybody can build a voting machine that's accurate. Now, whether people have voting machines that are inaccurate and all that, that's somebody else's business. We don't get into that. But we can tell you right now that if the kind of stuff that happened or people claimed happened in 2020 did happen, and we don't have any opinion on whether it did or not, but voting machines changing tabulations and all that, we don't know anything about that stuff. But what we do know is we know technology. And we know that's not going to happen at scale in 2024 because everybody's watching it. Everybody's going to be in the room with an app that you can have on your iPhone. And if a voting machine goes to a URL outside that room, 100 people in that room are going to see it on their phone. So a lot of that stuff is stuff that's out there and it gets people agitated, but we don't see that that's going to be the way to win 2024. We see the two big buckets that people are going to use in 2024 to impact the election are registering people at anomalous addresses, which we're involved in, and voter commissions changing the numbers of registered voters, et cetera, without going through any other process illegally during early voting. And that's what we saw happen in Arizona. We saw it happen in Wisconsin. We saw it happen in some places in Texas. And that's what's going to happen at scale in 2024.
So this is, the step in the right direction, of course, to have this transparency and up-to-date and to-the-moment transparency of voter database roles in various states and counties set up. I suppose at some level, anybody could have a fractal on their iPhone and be able to see these potential changes. An election commission could affect, like they did in Arizona, 20,000 voters onto a voter database roll before the election. In something like that, you have Kari Lake litigating this, months and months later, and it's just moving just inches at a time when these illegal actions can be done with almost impunity at this point. So the election laws are really don't have much teeth in them in terms of litigation, unfortunately.
Well, the reason this stuff can be done is you can't see it with current technology, Jeff. So the reason that you can go in and you can change the election rolls during early voting because no one's going to see it. What you do is you change 30,000 addresses. They don't get their ballots. Well, those ballots accumulate all over floors all over Arizona. You pick up the ballots, you vote them. But guess what? You change everybody's address back. You cleaned up the crime site. So there's no blood on the floor. Nobody sees it. Well, in the fractal world, we do. We pick that up. In the fractal world, we pick up the fact that in Missouri, 41,000 people in Missouri had their status changed from inactive to active. Then they voted them, and they changed it to inactive again. So we pick all that stuff up. You can't do that with current technology. That's why there's such pushback against using fractal. And it's not pushback from the teams. I have teams in literally, we're going to have teams in probably every state in the United States. We're 27 states as of this morning. I think I have probably another one, it looks like right now, that's going to want to start going forward with us. We've got Kentucky guys calling us, literally emailing me during the conversation I'm having with you. So we're probably going to do Kentucky, which will make it 28 states. But the people who are opposed to this are the elected officials. They're the RNC and the Democratic National Committee. Those are the people who don't want this kind of information to get out there. But unfortunately, the voter integrity teams that are using fractal, they're not taking no for an answer, and they're publishing this stuff, and it's going to get out there. And every single one of the 27 states we're operating in at some point or another is going to be public information. And elected officials in those states are going to have to come to terms about how did this go on your watch. I'm interested to see their answer.
Yes, creating and installing transparent election system databases is such a great move forward. And that you're doing this work pro bono will hopefully inspire other geniuses to come forward and offer their services.
We're doing it pro bono because we're trying to get people to buy the system. So understand that we're a commercial company. We don't take money from political parties. We don't take money from leftist organizations or right-wing organizations. We don't do that. What we're doing is we're doing the world's largest demonstration project. So let me give you a good example. So we did a demonstration of what I said. We took the property tax records, we compared them with the voter records for a large Midwestern state, which I will not name. The president of the Senate of that state called me the next day and said, "We saw what you did. This is really fascinating. We've never heard of you guys, never heard of this technology. Would you do our entire state on a demonstration project?" And we did. It's finished. After they saw the results, he said, "Would you add our DMV rolls and our Medicaid rolls?" Now, at that point, that's not public information, right? So we had to kind of sign NDAs and do all that, which we did. So now we are demonstrating for several states, not just their voter rolls, but their Medicaid rolls and all that. Now, in some cases, they're trying to fight fraud. They're all looking to do that. They're honest, good people. But in other cases, they're trying to give better government service. Isn't it interesting that in a state, Bill Jones, to make up a name, is in the Medicaid roll, the WIC roll, the teacher's retirement roll, the voter roll, the DMV roll. And yet, in all those roles, he's using 5 different addresses. Well, it's not because he's a bad person or he's doing something nefarious. It's because he's been using the state rolls for services for 25 years. His address has changed, and the state's mailing him all kinds of stuff from these property rolls or from the Medicaid rolls to wrong addresses. So just by cleaning the database, now for that guy, with one click, we're going to keep a record of all his previous addresses. But in addition to that, we're going to pick his one good address that we know he gets mail, and now we've improved state services to that guy. So people aren't using Fractal just to clean voter rolls, but they're using it for these other things. So we get paid for that, and we get paid a lot of money for that. But in every state in which we're proposing our system, our thesis is that we will cut your IT expense by over 50%. So we're doing this as a demonstration project. So I don't want to make it sound like we're doing this only out of the goodness of our heart. I mean, we are, because we're citizens like you, and anyone who had our technology would probably do the same thing. But we're getting it in front of people who have much bigger problems than voter roll fraud. Medicaid, if I can take 2 or 3% of Medicaid fraud out of your system, I'm going to take maybe, tens of millions of dollars a year I can save your taxpayer. Well, we got paid real money to do that. So people need to understand that we're a company, we do company stuff, and this is a demonstration project, but it's got everybody's attention for the 2024 election.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really powerful and very interesting when you start posting those videos. Jay Valentine, I really appreciate you being on in other news. If listeners want to find out more about your work and where you might post those videos, where would they go?
We have a website called Omega, 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 4, America.com, Omega for America. Go to that website, and we post everything we do there, and we will be posting these videos. Fulton County will be first up on some national websites and also on our website. So we look forward to meeting people. If they want to contact us, you can contact us through the website.
All right, Omega, 4, America.com. Got it. Thank you so much for being on In Other News. This has been a fantastic interview, and I will be following your work and seeing how this transpires. I suspect you'll be close to 50 states, I would imagine.
Well, thanks. It was good meeting you. Bye now.
That's going to do it for In Other News. I'm Jeff Brady. Visit inothernewsradio.com for archives and more information about the guests.